to start finishing off the stock market. What we should do next is make it so that our stocks are actually saving on the server side so that we can later on make it public. So we're going to, in service, insert a script which we are going to call the global stonk saver. And in the script we are going to do a few things. So we're first of all going to need to get the data source, so local GSDS, standing for global stonks data store, equals to game :get service data store service, and then :get data store global stonks data store. And now we want to get, first of all, to load all our data, two variables: local price data and local amount data, because we're going to use these values we're going to set them and in the end use what we are getting out of them to set the actual values of other things. So what we're going to do is we are going to say local success, error msg equals the ptol function, and we're basically just using the ptol to say price data equals to gsds :get async, and then we're going to make a key for this, so I'm just going to say stonk underscore prices. We do not have to do anything with the user ID. In fact, we should not, because this is supposed to be the data store for all stonks for the entire game, so like cross server, so that if in one server there are 50 stocks left to buy, then that's the same in all servers, and if all servers at some point for some reason shut down, that still stays that way if the server starts again. Anyways, what we're now going to do is we're going to say another local success, but in this case 2, error msg2 equals to another ptol function, and here we're going to say amount data equals to gsds :get async, and we're going to use a similar key, but we're going to use stonk underscore amounts, so that we can use, what this is going to return though is a table, because we want to save for all of the stocks their prices and their amounts, and we're going to make it so that they hopefully save in order, so that we can also load them in order, and it will all work. And we now have to do if not, and basically this will have worked now, hopefully. So we're going to say if price data, then, and we're going to say local stonks equals to game.replicate storage.stonk stuff.local stonks, and for I, stonk in pairs stonks :get children do. So we're going to loop through this folder over here, which is just going to represent all the stonks that exist, and what we're here going to do is say stonk.value equals to price data I, because what we're doing in saving is we're going to load the data out of the folder according to, because if for instance what we're saving is a table that looks something like this, so we have 1,5 for instance, so these are the amounts of stock, and our local stonks folder looks about like this. So this would look about the way that the first index of the save table corresponds to the first index of the table of the folder, so that we can this way load and save all the data. So if we're saying stonk.value equals to price data and then square brackets I, then we can just, that's basically all it for loading. So what we can then do is we can say we can basically just copy over this if statement, but when we paste it, instead of if price data, we check if amount data. And for stonks, where instead of local stonks, we get stonk amount. So this is just going to check for the amounts, and we can leave all the rest the same. But now it's actually time to start saving. So we're going to say local stonk prices equals to an empty table, so curly brackets, local stonk amounts equals to yet again an empty table, and then we're going to say while wait 5 do, because we're going to say that the stonks save every 5 seconds, which is, I'd say, enough, because only if it's the last server still open, then there might be data loss, because in any other case just all the other servers will still continue saving. So first of all, we have to clear these tables. So stonk prices equals to, and then squiggly brackets, and we'll do the same thing for stonk amounts. So stonk amounts equals to squiggly brackets. What we're now going to do is for I, comma, stonk in pairs, and then in these brackets we're going to say game.replicateSource.stonk.stuff.local stonks :get children, and after all these brackets do. So we're going to loop through the folder of local stonks and stonk stuff, and we're then going to say table.insert, and we first of all want to say which table, so stonk prices, and then we're going to insert what, being stonk.value, because if we are getting stonk.value in the same order as we're setting it, then this should all work. So what we can then do after this for loop is we can repeat basically the same for loop, but instead of local stonks we'll do stonk amounts, and instead of stonk prices we're going to say stonk amounts. And now to actually save all of this stuff, we are going to basically copy over our p-calls from the very start, and we're going to paste those over, but so a bit different. Instead of get async, we're just going to replace that with set async, and after our key we will say, with the comma separated, we are going to add to this stonk prices in the first one, and in the second one stonk amounts. So in case all servers shut down, that's the price they start up again. But this would be very awkward if we didn't make so that all the stonks are public or global, so that if in one server somebody buys 50 beer stonks, then in the other server there would be 50 less beer stonks as in both servers, so that prices and amounts are synced between all servers, because hey, that would be cool. So we're going to have to do a bit of a thing in the stonk module, because we want that we don't need to handle save stonks and reload stonk display, but we want that if somebody, and we also don't need initialize stonks, but we want in 3 cases for it to change the stonk value. The thing about making this stuff global is we're going to have to use the messaging service, which works by the principle of publishing a new async to a key and subscribing to async to get if something happens with this key. So we have to, for instance, in buy stonk, we have to publish to a specific key, which in this case is going to be stonks. We're going to have to publish another key, which is going to also be the data. So I had to do a bit of some shenanigans to figure out how to make this stuff work, but this should. So we are going to say, because this is the global stonk amount setting, So we're going to say local key equals to in the by stonk after the if statement, because in the last tutorial I said that we would still add some stuff here. So it starts off with name, which is the stonk type. We're going to concatenate this with a dash, and this is important because we have to use a dash here. It will not work if we don't do it this way, because the idea how we're going to separate between if we are increasing stock amount or decreasing it, and if we are decreasing or increasing stock value, is we are going to get the difference by if it's a dash or an underscore. So after the concatenation with a dash, we're going to say dot dot stonk amount dot value. So we are going to, in our key that we're publishing, we're going to say which stonk it is that we are changing the value and the updated value. We are all setting this in 2 lines. But before we can do that, we actually have to get the messaging service. So what we're going to do is right at the start of the script, we're going to say local m service equals to game get service messaging service. And then what we're going to do right around here, where after defining this key, we're going to say m service publish async, and then quotation marks stonks. So this is the original key, so to what topic we are posting new information, and then after quotation marks comma key, which is the new information we are posting. So we can just copy over these lines of codes for the cell stonk, because in the end we are just publishing how much it is afterwards. Something I also said we will do is that what we now should do is we should actually make that all this stuff is actually also received, because currently we're only publishing it, but none of the servers will even know. So what we're going to do is we are going to, at the last line of the stonk handler, because this is the global stonk getting, I'm just going to say that in quote as a comment. So we actually have to also copy over from our stonk module the messaging service variable and just paste that right at the top. And then here we're going to say mService : subscribe async, because if we're publishing to an async, we also have to subscribe to an async. The topic is stonks in quotation marks, because that's what we're publishing to. And then we have to concatenate. We will separate this with function open bracket message, and behind the close bracket we'll drop a line, and this we're basically creating a function which we're passing in to do what if this is being called. So this is kind of what we're doing with any event, but this is just not used to because we have it after a comma. But anyways, we know we have a message, so we need to get the data out of it. So local key equals to message.data, and then we have to check if key : find in our brackets quotation marks an underscore, which we have not dealt with yet. Then so we're just going, so this is going to be the global stock value getting, but we are going to deal with that later. So we're going to say else if key : find a dash in the quotation marks. Then so this means that we are, so here we're doing global stock amount getting, because we know in the stonk module that we have been using dashes when we are doing about the amount, so we should keep this trend here. So if it's about global start amount getting, what we have to do is we first of all have to get local data equals to key colons split, and we're going to split this with, in this case, a dash. And what this is going to return is a table with everything. So except of the thing we're splitting it through. So it's going to return name and start amount of value from that server, so that it would look in a table about like this. So we first of all get name, comma, amount, which means we have to deal with it like this. So basically, we can make a variable local amount equals to game.replicated storage dot stonk stuff dot stonk amounts, and then in square brackets data, and then in square brackets, in these square brackets, 1, because name. So this way this is actually, and then we're kind of just getting the value here in stonk amounts, and we're going to override this. So we're going to say local new stonk amount equals to 2 number square brackets 2 number data in square brackets 2, because this will send it as a string, but because it's a number, it will with 2 numbers just make it a normal number. And then we have to say amount.value equals to new stonk amount. So this just makes that the amount of starts is in every server the same. Now it would also be nice if their value was always the same. To actually change their value though, we in the start module have to say start module dot change stonk val equals to function, and we need the name comma amount, because we need to know which stonk to change and by how much, which should also be a minus number. So we are going to say local stonk equals to game.replicated storage dot stonk stuff dot local stonk, and then in square brackets name. So here we have the value object, and then we're just going to say stonk dot value equals to amount, because in this case we are going to use this function only in other scripts, so we don't have to use 2 number here. Now to also make this global, we are going to drop a few lines and say in comment global stonk value setting, just so that we know, and then we're going to create a key in similar fashion. Local key equals to stonk.name dot quotation marks in this time an underscore. I said it would be important, so make sure you're at least using them separately. And then we're going to concatenate this with stonk.value. And then we're just going to say mservice publish async quotation marks stonk comma key. And then this actually mostly does it for changing the stonk value. Now we only have to, in the stonk handler, actually deal with making it so that in every server it actually is received to be this way. So we're going to say local data equals to key colon split, but this time with an underscore, because we know that we need to do that. And then local stonk equals to game.replicated storage dot stonk stuff dot local stonks, and then in square brackets data, and then after data another pair of square brackets 1, because we kind of get the same format of a result with a table like this, so I'm just going to quickly paste that here so that we can remember. And then we just have to say stonk.value equals to number data 1, data 2, because we first of all get the name, so we know which stonk to set, and then 2, which is the amount. So this should actually make it be public in every server the same way, which is actually perfect. Now there's just one thing that I would like to do to make all of this a lot cooler. Because how cool would it be if we not only had the start board where you can buy and sell stars, but also one where it just has the name of the stock, its value, and then arrow indicating if it last went up or down. And if you have a lot of players where it will change that all the time, then the arrow would go up, down, up, down, up, down, and that would just kind of look cool. So let's make that. So we first of all have to kind of just duplicate something like or already pre-existing stock board and make this a bit smaller because that's kind of just how we need it. So I'm just going to make it something like this. And then in the starter GUI, I'm going to duplicate the surface GUI because we need to have a stonk display. Now what we have to do is we have to also get, we kind of want this GUI to be different. Also we have to set the adorning of this GUI to be instead this part, and we want to kind of change this GUI because it kind of just works a bit different. For instance, we want the text label to just display stonks because this one indicates it a bit different. But the important part is that in the stonk module we have the display temp. We have our template which we can copy over into this other scrolling frame, and this is just horrible for what we're doing. So instead what we're going to do is we are going to modify this a bit because we kind of just need it completely different. We can keep the UI corner, but we can get rid of the rest. I like the color, but that's pretty much all we can keep. Also, we're going to call this the display template. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to say that we also don't need the UI grid layout, but instead a UI list layout. We are, for this UI list layout, going to make... all we're going to change for it is the horizontal alignment from left to center. Then what we're going to do is going to set the display template size to 0.95, 0.75, 0.075 for the y-axis, so that is about the size, which is good. And now we want this thing to actually display stuff. So first of all, we want it to display what stonk it even is about. So we're going to insert a text label into here, which we are going to make the background transparency be 1. And then we're going to make it be bold, rich text scaled. And that is about it for that part. Now we also have to make it so that the size is, let's say, 0.6, 0.1, 0.6, 1, so that it takes about this much space. Now we need to call this the display name. Now we can duplicate this to call it value, and we are going to make that the one called value, that instead of it being 0.6 on the x-axis, we're going to make it 0.2 on the x-axis, and we're going to say that the position is actually 0.6, and that is about it for that part. We can keep this way, and finally we have to insert an image label, which we are going to make size be 0.2 comma comma 1 comma, so that it fits perfectly in the last space. And all we have to do for that is set the background transparency to 1 and the position on the x-axis to be 1, whereas putting the anchor point on the x-axis also to 1, so that it fits in the last part of the space. Perfect. Now the only thing we still have to do for what we still have to do though is that down here at the icons we have to, let's say, drop 2 lines just so that we know. And then what we are going to do is we are going to say stonk module dot increase equals to quotation marks and stonk module dot decrease equals to also quotation marks, because we're going to fill those right now. So we're going to switch our toolbox to what I'm going to do. Just you should probably not do this, but we need images for up and down arrows. So I'm just going to toolbox, switch it to images and search for up arrow, and I'm just going to take whatever looks somewhat fine, copy the asset ID, paste it into the image display, image label, and then cut it back out because it made a perfect asset ID out of it. And then I'm just going to, in the toolbox, replace the up with a down so that I can find a nice down arrow. Whatever, this will do. I'm going to paste that back into the image, cut it back out, and paste it into the decrease. Now that we have our things for up and down, what we can do is we can put the display template into the stonk module, and we can make yet another function. I mean, we don't need to touch sell stonk and buy stonk and change stonk value anymore, which is nice. But we can now, after reload stonk display, make the function stonk module that reload stonk display screen, yes, that's a mouthful, equals to function, and in here we only need to know stonks, just like in the reload stonk display. But this is going to be quite a bit different. If I recall correctly, yes, we here are also get the variable local stonks. We can copy this one over because that's exactly what we need, and we are going to also copy over the for loop from here. We're going to copy that over. We can also copy over the if statement, the first variable, but from here it's going to be a bit different. We are going to say stonk frame name equals to stonk dot name, and this is the last statement. Well, okay, now we have to actually still touch the buy, and now we have to touch the change stonk value function, because we want to actually, for it to display if the value went up or down, we have to make an if statement. If amount is bigger than 0, then, and else amount is smaller than 0, then. Simply it. If it's bigger than 0, we're going to say that's why we actually also added the stonk value directions folder in the last tutorial, because in that folder we're going to insert bool values. Specifically, we're going to insert bool values for every other stonk that we have and call them accordingly. So I've got beer and bread. We'll leave their values for now, but we're going to say here back in if amount is bigger than 0, game.replicated storage.stonk stuff.stonk value directions, and then in square brackets name, and then after the square brackets dot value equals to true. And in the else part, we're going to copy for the else. We're going to copy this part over, and instead of true, we're going to replace it with false. Now this is going to make so that the value goes up and down if somebody if the value is increased or decreased. So this will make it so that we can, back in the reload stonk display screen function, after stonkframe.name equals to stonk.name, we can do if game we can kind of also copy over the part where we set something, but we can instead of name, we can use stonk.name, and instead of an equals, we'll use an equals to, and we'll start with false then, and we can just do else if, and we can copy over this whole part then, because now it should be fixed, and replace the false with a true then. So if it's a true, that means that the value goes up, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, but if it's a false, then it goes down. So we're first going to tear first false. We're going to say stonk frame dot image label dot image equals to stonk module dot decrease. This is the item we have here. And else stonk frame dot image label dot image equals to stonk module dot increase. We are nearly done. All we still have to do is we're going to have to say stonk frame dot name display dot text equals to stonk dot name, and stonk frame dot value dot text equals to, in quotation marks, whatever your currency sign is after the quotation marks, dot game dot related storage dot stonk stuff dot local stonks, and then in square brackets stonk dot name, and then after the square brackets dot value. So this is going to it's going to display the price, and then stonk frame dot parent equals to stonks. The final thing we'll have to do is we'll have to, in starter GUI, insert yet another script and call this the display setter. And then here we're going to get the stonk module out of from anywhere. We're going to get that variable, and we're going to say while wait do stonk module that reload stonk display screen script dot parent dot stonk display dot main frame dot scroll in frame, and that is pretty much it. Let's see if it displays the stuff or if that part does not work for now. So if we run the game, then it is currently not displaying anything. Let's see why that is. Let's try that again. Oh yeah. Something we also have to do is in the display setter before all the while wait do is we'll have to do a for I comma stonk in pairs game that replicates storage dot stonk stuff dot local stonks colon get children do, and we kind of have to get local stonk frame equals to game dot server script service dot stonk module dot display template colon clone stonk frame dot name equals to stonk dot name, and stonk frame dot parent equals to script dot parent dot stonk display dot main frame dot scroll in frame. And now let's see if that works, because now that it's actually loading them for the first time, it should now be able to update them. Oh, it got us an error. It did add them, but I might have misspelled something. Name display is not valid member of whatever. Well, let's see why that is. Line 87. Oh yeah, I said it wrong here. Actually, in the display template, the display name should also should be set name display. That's fixed. It should work. And if we go over here, it is actually not loading anything. Oh, I scrolled. Okay, so it's displaying bread as 5 and beer as 2. Now you may be wondering, why are they all only pointing down? Well, the reason is that currently they have not changed at all. So if we go onto the server and paste out the stonk module and then say dot change start val, so we want to know which start. So how about we do bread and then let's make it rise by 200. So if we go back onto the client to see the changes, as we can see, the value is the arrow is pointing up, and it is exactly 200. Let's say if we change that to 400, then I imagine it won't have gone to 600. Well, to use this function in a way that it would increase the value rather than just change it to whatever, I'll show you that in a second, but let's actually see, because it should have saved these values. Yes, it's at 400. I must have closed the game before I saved those. But now if we were to go back to our command, instead of putting in a stat value, we'll have to do game.replicated storage.stonk stuff local stonks, and then dot the stonk that we want to change. So let's say bread dot value, and then we'll just add, say, plus how much we want to increase it by, and now it should be by 600. Yeah. Now if we re-execute that line, it should be by 800. Yeah. So this works perfectly. Let's try it with beer, and if we just execute that line of code, it should be by 202. Oops, it apparently not changed beer. Changed bread. Oh, yep. The reason is because I accidentally put in bread here instead of beer. Yeah, that can lead to funny side effects, but yeah, as we can see now, that's 202. Let's actually change it to minus number, because if we now do minus, then okay, it did not display the arrow correctly. Let's see why that may be. So if the value displays false, it uses decrease. If it displays true, it uses increase. And here, if it is bigger than 0, it puts it to true, and in the other case to false. Actually, the reason why we had to do it so weirdly with inputting a value is because I accidentally said that stonk.value equals to amount instead of plus equals to amount, and that should also change our problem. So if we try it now, as we can see, it saved our values. Now let's try re-executing our function. So stonk module dot change stonk value. Let's change bread and increase that by 2. Oh yeah, I forgot to use a comma here. So now if we do that, then it's 204. We can do that again. It is 206. Now if we were to go minus 22, then it worked correctly. We can also do beer minus 22. Then that is at minus 22. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's just increase the. Let's just remove the minus and put that to 202. Now, yeah, that works all the way it should. Perfect. Yeah, we should enter those. Anyways, that was how you can make a global stock market in Roblox Studio. I'm ddoelker, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!